And welcome back to the MMA Plug presented to you by DenverSportsBetting.com on 98.1 FM Mile High Sports Radio. I'm Jordan Kurtz sitting here alongside a very special guest by way of the MyFit Foods of Denver hotline. Eat fit, live fit, give a fit. Go to www.myfitfoods.com. Use the promo code Peanut Gallery to get yourself some savings on the background. We have a historic guest, I should also say, in the Spartan, Elias Theodorou, one of the Colorado people. You have to love the message behind this. He is a very green-friendly fighter. He is the only guy, or the first guy, to ever receive a therapeutic use exemption for cannabis. Elias, how you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me, man.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on. You're the main event this next weekend coming up at the Colorado Combat Club card. So, what is just some of your thoughts as you're coming into the final week of camp and going into fight week preparations?
Basically, there ain't nothing left to do but to do it. All the hard work has been done. I'm really excited to be here. Loving Denver so far. I've been here for a couple of days now. Trying to get used to all the elevation and whatnot. I came from Vegas, which is about half the same elevation, so I didn't really feel it too much, except for when I went on a couple of runs on some of the hills, adding an extra 1,700 feet. Then you start feeling it. But I also did kind of go out off the beaten path, and at one point I ended up on the rock climbers path, so it was a little funky, but feeling good. Like I mentioned, excited to be here, excited for my fight and the fight outside of the cage, obviously, as you alluded to. I'm really excited. 5-6 years of hard work coming together, first taking place in Canada when I got my therapeutic use exemption recognized there, and now in Colorado, looking to make history as the first sanctioned cannabis athlete in competition. And then not only for myself, but to set precedent for other athletes to use the same precedents that I did, to be able to medicate as prescribed by their doctor if warranted. So again, looking to knock out my opponent and knock out cannabis from the prohibited list in athletics. And that's what I'm going to do this next Saturday.
Let's talk about the second portion of that first. Why is that such a big cause for you, or something that you're such a massive proponent of?
Well, it originally started with my own case. I have something called bilateral neuropathy. I essentially use cannabis for pain management, as a alternative to first-line medicines like opioids and painkillers. And it was during my time with the UFC and trying to apply with USADA that I saw the uphill battle that was. So, in many ways, when Canada legalized cannabis nationwide, and ended, the darkness of prohibition, I felt the need to also, be very vocal on my own process. So other athletes who are maybe too afraid, not necessarily even to be as public, but even to just try it and look at cannabis as a potential option, and trying to advocate and educate so that they can talk to their own medical providers if warranted. But again, going through my process, I just saw, especially because of being with the UFC, who partnered with USADA, which is a third-party testing organization. They come from the same group of entities of WADA, which is the Olympic anti-doping agency. But basically, because USADA gets funding by the U.S. government, they have to look at cannabis as a Schedule I drug, which means there's no medical properties. And they kept on trying to force me to take opioids and painkillers, all while, and even towards the end of it, actually, antidepressants. And I'm not depressed. So when you had my actual doctor looking at the whole process and saying, hey, some of the stuff we haven't even suggested, taking for the type of pain you had, that's how outdated this process is. And that's something I was determined to fight, not only for myself, but for all athletes. And that's what I've kind of been committed to. And it all comes full circle this December 18th in Green Lake, Colorado, where I take on Brian Baker, and look again, not only to finish him, but to end the prohibition of cannabis in athletics for all athletes.
Now, you mentioned that that was a very large uphill battle that you had to face while you were with the UFC and having to deal with USADA. You're one of the peculiar cases out there of fighters who was no longer a part of the organization coming off of a win, and you still had fights on your contract left. Am I mistaken by saying that?
Actually, I lost my last fight, and what's it called? There was a what's called another fight on the contract, but in our conversations, it was just one, like you said. I thought between where I was in my career and what I think I could have done, it almost made sense to be a not only as a free agent, to be an agent of change, and that's what I kind of focused on after my fight. Being able to part ways with the UFC and then go back to Canada and apply through the commission actually creates another foundation of medical cannabis rights, because the commission is actually run by the provincial, and in Colorado's case, the state government. So both cases where I was approved in British Columbia and fought in March, and now this Saturday for the Colorado Combat Club, I'll be what's called fighting and obviously sanctioned by the Colorado government via the commission. So this is actually another foundation of medical cannabis rights, and the first time cannabis has been considered a medicine in professional sports.
With you being such a trailblazer on this path, have you had other athletes reach out to you or other fighters reach out to you, and maybe how they can get the ball rolling on that same path for themselves? Or is it still just kind of so early in the process that it hasn't gotten to that stage yet?
No, it very much, athletes have been talking to me, both fighters and even Olympic athletes. Some of them who are, again, tested year round for cannabis. Now it's starting to, again, the cannabis side of history is definitely winning the momentum at the moment. So, they have certain changes to it, but again, whether it's the UFC or even like WADA, it's considered, instead of a performance enhancing drug, it's more considered a narcotics that, again, under the same label as like cocaine and other types of like methamphetamines that are, not anywhere the same as cannabis. And again, that outdated mindset, or even the fact that, for instance, the UFC has touted the fact that they won't be testing for cannabis, but in reality, the USADA still tests them, but they don't choose to punish them. But if anyone says that they use cannabis as a medicine or as anything involving anti-anxiety, then they can actually be penalized. So it's like a weird hodgepodging of the situation, rather than outright removal of actual testing. And again, the testing itself is a flawed instrument, because they use the same standard of testing from a 115-pound female fighter to a 265-pound male fighter. And obviously everybody and every body is different. And, that was one of the things I was able to argue in regards to my case. And again, this is just some of the education and advocating that I'm doing. And to come back to your question, I've talked to other athletes, both in MMA and, Olympic style, sports as well, in the amateur circuit. And it's something very much in the next year that I'm looking to take in my precedent and actually helping others. And I'm looking to establish and also maintain my relationship with Colorado Combat Club, not just for this fight, but for all of 2022, and looking to help any other fighter and even potentially boxer, because the way, again, the same commission runs the same components. I can help not only MMA fighters, but boxers as well, amateur and professional, in their own process of getting a therapeutic use exemption. So that's something I'm really excited for, again, to get my hand raised next Saturday, but also to take the victory, because I'm going into this fight already with a win, having my medical rights, approved and validated with my therapeutic use exemption.
Phenomenal. I mean, that's a lot of information that all of our listeners were very intrigued to hear. especially with it being Colorado, and Colorado being one of the first states here in the United States to have recreational, and all that improved. But let's pivot now and let's talk about the matchup here. So as you come into
Yeah.
this main event matchup, just tell me what some of your thoughts are, stylistically, and just without going too far behind the curtain on, game plan or X's and O's, what are your thoughts here on this matchup?
Yeah, Brian Baker's a great fighter. He's fought some of the who's who, especially in the Bellator circuit. He's was right on the top echelons, fought for the the finales and whatnot for the previous format of Bellator tournaments. He's, like I said, he's fought the who's who's, and I see a very much kingship in regards to our almost, like, for lack of a better word, we're both vets. And really excited to fight someone like Brian Baker, who's a tough fighter. He's going to come at me. He's going to try and knock my block off, but I'm going to show him the difference between chess and checkers, and I'm going to build off the momentum that I'm going in with 2 fights in a row with dominating fashion, where I finished former UFC fighters. Again, I'm looking to do me and make Brian Baker worry about that.
Just in terms of the styles, and it's been a little while since we've seen Brian in action, so it's always kind of tough when someone has so much time away to get a true gauge of where they are. But with him being a little bit more of a vet, maybe it's a little bit easier to think like he is what he is. He's a tough fighter who, just like you mentioned, he likes to move forward. He likes to slug it out, but you're someone who fancies a lot of movement. Do you see that being you using your movement, your footwork, and creating angles to be something that works to your advantage?
Yeah, and again, I'm not afraid to be in his face as well. I think he's very simple. He's like because I've fought so many people, there's certain fighters that I see similarities in, and I've had success in him. He's almost like a mixture of 2 different fighters that I've had. Like, he has a really great judo background, but he's no Dan Kelly. In the capacity, Dan Kelly was a multiple black belt, multiple actually 4-time Olympian for Australia, who liked to push forward as well. I'd say that Brian's a lot more explosive and a lot more dangerous in regards to catching you on your feet. He kicks more too, and he's overall just a better specimen of an athlete, if you will. So again, I see some similarities with him, mixtures with a couple other fighters that I fought. But again, like I said, he's very much gonna be the charging individual, and I'm gonna play matador, but also be a bull when it comes to trying to look for the finish. I'm 2 fights in a row with dominating finishes, from pillar to post. I think the longer this goes, the better it goes for me. But again, I'm looking to take him in deep waters and put on one hell of a show for the fans in Greenlee and Colorado, more broadly speaking. We'll have a pay-per-view. So if you follow me at Elias Theodorou, you can check out obviously my journey as both a fighter and a cannabis advocate, but also my next fight coming up. The pay-per-view, they're all online. You can follow Colorado Combat Club as well. You can look up for them for tickets. We still have a few tickets left. I'm really excited. We're basically going to sell out the place, so it's very close. So if you're going to look to grab tickets, I would check sooner rather than later. And it's really excited to fight in front of fans again. My last fight, obviously with COVID, it was kind of cool and different. It was very similar to the Ultimate Fighter, where there wasn't in my last fight, there wasn't too many people in the crowd other than the capacity allowance for the COVID rules, and most of it were either coaches or people working the show and whatnot. This one, we're looking at 3,000 to 4,000 people in the stands. Really excited to put on one hell of a show for the fight fans.
I can't wait to call these fights this next weekend. I'm certainly excited to see you in action there in the main event. As we tie up, folks, we're talking to Elias Theodorou. He's going to be in the main event this next weekend, as he just mentioned, for Colorado Combat Club. In 2 sentences or less, what can you say that your fans, people that may be new to seeing you, anybody who may be tuning in next Saturday, what will they expect to see? 2 sentences or less.
A great night of fights, and yours truly is winning 2 times over, both inside the cage and out, with history.
Elias, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on the MMA Plug, presented to you folks by DenverSportsBetting.com on 98.1 FM Mile High Sports Radio. He was joined to us by the MyFit Foods of Denver hotline. Eat fit, live fit, give a fit. Go to www.myfitfoodsofdenver and make sure that you use that promo code Peanut Gallery to get the savings on the back end. Tune in on Saturday night. You don't want to miss these fights. Stick around after the break, folks. We're going to be talking about more in the world of combat sports. This is the MMA Plug, presented to you by DenverSportsBetting.com on 98.1 FM Mile High Sports Radio.